What's the scariest movie you've ever seen? Some of you may say The Exorcist, some of you may say The Ring, and others may even bring up Insidious or The Conjuring. But what do these movies have in common? They're all very well known. Anything you can say about these movies has already been said. But during my last semester at the University of Florida, I saw a movie that genuinely scared me, and when I went online, it didn't seem like a lot of people were talking about it. It's almost like it went under the radar unnoticed. So I felt compelled to make this video because I know how hard it is to find a good horror movie. This genre is filled with terrible, forgettable films. And when you are lucky enough to find a good one, it's almost like a drug because you're experiencing this high, and as soon as the movie ends, the lows kick in and you're off chasing the next high. I think drugs are a great analogy for horror movies because the more you do a drug, the more your body builds up a tolerance to it and the effects don't feel the same. The more horror movies you watch, the harder it is to get scared. Movies that used to freak me out as a kid, such as Insidious and Paranormal Activity, aka supernatural horror, doesn't really work on me anymore, so the natural progression is to move on to the next harder drug. So I started watching gory movies, torture porn, even going down the disturbing movie Iceberg. But the movie that I want to talk about in this video is actually a supernatural horror movie. And even though I feel like I've graduated from this subgenre of horror, this movie found a way to pull it off. So let's talk about it. The name of the movie is called House LLC Origins: The Carmichael Manor, and it's about these two girls and a guy that go up to this mansion in the middle of nowhere to investigate murders that occurred in that house. And you might be wondering why I found this movie so scary. Is it the jump scares? Is it the creepy visuals? Or is it something deeper than surface levels, such as the psychological aspect to it, or the sense of realism that makes you feel like maybe this could happen to you? My short answer is, it's a combination of all four. And I'd like to start with jump scares because I see this trend online that a lot of people hate jump scares. Rightfully so. They've been overused, you've been conditioned to them, so you see them coming from a mile away. But I would have to disagree with this because I would argue you don't hate jump scares, you just despise bad ones. Because the reality is, jump scares are in every horror movie for a reason. They are effective, and you can't disagree with me on this because it's science. Take a look at what audiologist Jasmine Benson has to say about it. The startle response can also make a person or an animal tense up, or even duck for cover. The response itself is evolutionary, helping to detect a potential threat. A lion's roar is an example. It's in our DNA to be scared of sudden noises because it could potentially be a threat that could kill us. But since you're watching these horror movies on your couch, the jump scares don't have the same effect because you know there's not going to be a big bad wolf that's going to come kill you. So there is an art to making the perfect jump scare, and when done right and used sparingly throughout the film, they can be some of the most impactful moments of the experience. Let's take a look at what Alfred Hitchcock had to say about this, one of the greatest horror movie directors of all time. He said, "There's no terror in the bang, only the anticipation of it." And what he's talking about is tension. Before the jump scare ever comes, the buildup makes you feel extremely uneasy, and then when you finally do get the jump scare, you get this release of tension, and that's where this movie comes in clutch. The reason why most jump scares will never leave a lasting impact on the audience is because you get this release of tension. Throughout the entire movie, you get a bunch of scenes where the tension rises and then it releases once you see the threat or the monster. But what this movie does so well is that the tension never goes away. You don't get a resolution to your conflict. You don't get an answer to your question. It just continues to build up. Take a look at this scene, for example. The two girls go into town and leave the brother behind in the house, and all of a sudden he starts hearing footsteps. When he opens the door of his room, he sees a shadow at the end of the hallway in the other room.
Margot! Come on, you guys better not be fucking with me. Jesus.
This is when the tension starts to build, because who's this person in the other room? He's supposed to be alone, and at this point we have no idea. Is it the girls playing a prank on him? Did someone break into the house? Or is he having a mental breakdown because we've been told this character suffers from psychosis? We just don't know, and we see the shadow moving, so we know there's someone in that room. So as he approaches the room, what most horror movies would do at this point is as soon as he turns the corner, you would get a loud jump scare and an answer to your questions. But in this movie, we don't get that. Yes, there's a little bit of a loud noise, but the scene isn't over. There's these two clowns in the room, so you would think that's the threat. but they're not moving, so you can't come to that conclusion. And when he gets closer to them, they just appear to be mannequins. And then it just cuts to another scene. So we get no resolution to our conflict. Like, what the hell happened? So the tension never goes away. It only continues to grow. Let's look at another example. And before I go into it, if you haven't seen this movie, maybe click off because I will be ruining some of the best parts of this movie. You've been warned. But the same guy sees a hand at the end of the hallway. And then all of a sudden he sees a face. Now the tension is rising really fast at this point. And then the face hides itself again. And then he goes to turn the corner. And usually when you would have a jump scare, we get nothing. Your anxiety as a viewer just continues to increase. Now, this doesn't mean that there are jump scares in the movie. There absolutely are. And one of my favorite ones is this scene right here, which uses a very common trick in horror, but I feel like this movie elevates it to the next level. One of our main characters is having a Zoom call with one of her clients, showing her a potential property she can buy. And as she's going through the slideshow, all of a sudden she starts seeing pictures of the house that she's in. Now, this has been done many times before in horror movies. Take a look at Hush, for example, which is a very popular horror movie. There's a scene in the beginning of that movie where the protagonist is receiving emails of pictures of herself from the inside of her house. But what this movie does differently is that the pictures get closer and closer and closer to our character, building up that tension unlike the other movie. In Hush, you just get a couple pictures and you know that the threat is inside the house. In this movie, you know the threat is inside the house, but it's getting closer. And then we even see a figure in the picture, and then when she looks in the room, it's not there. This almost reminds me of Art the Clown in All Hallows Eve at the end of the movie, where the girl's looking in the TV and she can see Art in her room, but when she looks, he's not actually there. So it's combining all these cool effects and putting it into one scene, and then we finally get the jump scare and the release of tension. Thank you, Jesus, because holy cow, that is one of the best horror scenes I've seen in a long time. And that's a great example of a good jump scare, because throughout the movie, you don't get a lot of jump scares. So the few that you do get are very memorable. For the most part, you get very tense scenes where the tension doesn't go away. Take a look at this scene.
I know what you did! I was there! No! No, please stop, please stop!
The clown doesn't just pop out of nowhere. You see it for the entire scene, but you can hear the panic in her voice, and then the aesthetic of the red room in the very back just adds to the creepiness. And this is a perfect segue to the visuals, which are phenomenal in this movie. I mean, just look at the design of these clowns. They look extremely creepy. But another thing that I want to mention about this movie is that most of the scares happen during broad daylight. That's how you know a movie's scary, because the easiest trick in horror is to use darkness to your advantage. We're all inherently scared of the dark. We're all scared of what lurks in the shadows. So the fact that the majority of the scares in this film occur during broad daylight, I mean, that's amazing. Bravo. Bravo to the filmmaker. That is truly impressive. So because of that, in my opinion, this is the scariest movie of the decade, with VHS 94 being a very close second. So that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want to support the channel, I just started a Patreon, which I'll link in the description below, but I just uploaded my review for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And this is not a sponsor, but there's also a link in the description for NordVPN. This is a product that I use. I have NordVPN and I truly love their service. So another way that you can support me and get something for yourself is clicking that link to get NordVPN. I mean, having a VPN these days is essential. It's like if you're gonna drive a car, you need car insurance. You can't drive a car and not have car insurance. That's ridiculous. So go ahead and check those out. And if you don't want to, that's totally fine as well. Another way you can support me is hitting that like button, subscribing if you're not already, and comment down below, what is the scariest horror movie you've seen of this decade, the 2020s? And I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.